We want to talk about how to make rowing enjoyably aerobic. And although that sounds funny, we kind of want to ensure that you can maintain a great position to actually enjoy rowing itself. It's like doing a deadlift with a slightly less intense contraction over and over. So a couple of things that you want to have as prerequisites that are not rules, but you got to have some kind of structure of core stability and to hold your midline in place in order to produce force so that you're doing those deadlifts every minute over and over perfectly. First would be a front leaning rest. So being able to hold this position, just make it simple. Two things to consider: shoulders over hands, glutes engaged, and your belly's tight, okay? So we don't want any sagging position. And if you can hold that, try to make a goal of holding that for a minute. To switch it up and do the opposite, same idea, retract your shoulders as much as possible, fingers pointing back, and you're gonna do the reverse. Now, when I do this same idea, I don't want an extended back. I wanna push my hips upward, right? So I'm using my bum and low back and hamstrings to do the opposing movement, and I wanna try to hold that for a minute. Same thing for the side. Side bridge, trying to be as straight as possible and holding this for a minute and do it on both sides. Now for motor control, we want to look at it in regards to right to left, because within the patterning of rowing, you have to start from here and finish here. You're kind of locked in place. So if you're locked in, you have to ensure that you have great right to left balance. So a way of just looking at this as a motor control area, so you can assess it, is being able to hold a star, which looks like this, on either side. And when you do it, just look and see what your balance is like as you do either side. So if you do this side, it's like, okay, that's great. You get to the other side and it's just really a shitty package of movement, then you want to say that that's a lack of motor control on that specific side and just try to make that better. You also want to be able to do a lunge pattern that's equal from side to side. So that means stepping forward and stepping back in place. And what you want to have is just both sides looking equal when you do that, to make it simple. And then third, around a bending, you want to be able to do a quasi candlestick movement so that on each side you're showing good control and good right to left balance when you do it. We're going to focus on 3 positions. So the first position, you want to figure out exactly where tension is. If you can think about it, my angle of my shin, or the chances of my shin changing position or femur changing position, is pretty slim. So the only malleable angle that really has a lot of movement that could be anything important to consider is the ankle and your spine, right? So just think about that. I do have this ability to get into these major flexion extension positions during the row technique, but I'm not really going to lose a whole lot of angle problems around my hip or my knee, okay? You need to focus on trying to maintain as tall and as rigid of a spine as possible. Back to what we saw in the FLR and rear leaning rest, you want to maintain that real nice rigid position. So you have to get here and understand what that tension feels like, okay? When I come into this catch position, I don't want to already be in an extended position for the start of that drive, because I'm going to develop a whole bunch of force from this position to go in that direction. So it would make sense that I want to have a slightly forward position of that body and a rigid upper spine. The second position you're going to consider is full extension, okay? So in full extension, you have to understand what that tension feels like. So staying really tall, and you can see the angle of my body now is almost opposite to the angle that it was here. Now that'll change for people based upon the mechanics of their body, but you want to feel what that tension is like. So I have a real tight core, my hips are tight, quads are tight, and I have full extension around the ankles, and it's going to look like that as a finishing position. The mid portion is more dynamic, and you can't really say that there's like 8 points of that action that's really key to focus on. So one area you may just want to think about is straight arms on the drive, from the catch position on the drive, straight arms, and you want to use your legs to propel the movement. Because coming back in position, all you really have to think about, was a cue that I've learned many years back from listening to people who were on water and rowing a lot, is that if you come back from this full drive position and you're going to go back to start to try to pull again, you probably don't want to have the oar coming up and then down. So when I come back from that extension position, you just want to focus on keeping the oar low. And that generally fixes a whole bunch of things on coming back. But when you're going in this direction on the drive, for the third point you're going to consider, arms are straight, and you have to extend with the legs. right? And that'll take care of really some ideas around, you know, scooting back too early, or early arm band, or people extending too quickly. With straight arms and with you drive with the legs, you should be able to take care of that. So let's review those 3 points. Starting position, tall spine, straight arms, and you're going to have tension through the legs as you start. You have to understand the finishing position, full extension, nice and tall. Abs are tight on that finishing position, quads are tight and extended at the ankles. And then as you drive from here out, you're just going to be using your legs with straight arms to move the action. In training the rowing technique, you should be doing endurance before power. You want to focus on going long and going slow first, because you want to have all those contractions perfect. Remember the deadlift analogy. Just go back to that. You want to do perfect deadlifts every time. Okay, so if it takes me, you know, 6 months to develop a really slow row technique that I feel I can accomplish, and then I can add pace and intensity to it, then that's going to make for a much longer, more successful, mechanically correct career in rowing, let's say. So a couple things there where people go faults on, and little ideas to fix it, and then we'll wrap it up. Drive timing coordination. So that means when people start here and they want to put the effort back into going in this direction, they'll basically scoot their bum back first, or they'll, you know, extend with their upper body first, or they'll do this upper track, you know, upper trap and upper back contraction first. Again, that's mainly fixed by focusing on the legs in the drive. Okay, so when people come back to the catch position, you just say to yourself, feel that tension in your hip flexors and your abs holding yourself in position. Feel the rigidity of your spine, and then as you move from here out, just feel your legs working to propel you. In most cases, that'll take care of it, because a lot of people who scoot the seat, they just lose tension in their legs as a drive mechanism, because they know they're going to be able to accomplish, you know, pulling on the back end based upon their anthrometrics. Early arm bend, this is a highly typical one in those who do not have that posterior chain engagement for pulling off the ground. You'll see this also in touch and go barbell technique, and maybe even some hanging activities, but they really don't have a good core connection to their upper back tension so that they can drive effectively. So what ends up happening is that as soon as they start that tension, their brain goes, I need to really bend my arms to engage my lats to create tension in my core in order to do the movement. Now that doesn't make it a wrong thing, but you can think about it over time, it's going to be really inefficient, right? So if I have to do thousands of those reps, so keeping my arms straight, driving with my legs, and ensuring that tension is still connected will be just a cue you're going to have to do to fix that. And again, watching it on video can be an easy word to fix for it. Too soon return to catch. So that means people are coming back way too quickly. A key component is to think about when you have that big hard drive, just come back nice and relaxed in order to create a really powerful drive again. Incomplete extension, those would be people who don't finish with locking the quads out or coming to full extension, or they're so focused, especially in fitness, a lot of people are so focused on coming back into the drive position again that you'll see them finish here, finish tall with the body, a lack of extension at the knee, and then they'll have their toes pull back towards them. Because all their brain is thinking is like, I got to get back there in order to drive again. I would much rather, in learning the skill, to make sure individuals get to full extension every time and know what that feels like. And then lastly, postural endurance loss. So this is a key one that if you don't have those prerequisites on the floor, individuals generally lose this over time. So they'll start the row stroke and it'll look fantastic, right? You know, you can just picture you're a coach watching the client do their activity, and then you come back 2 minutes later, you know, and they're bent over, and they got this seat scooting back a little bit too early. That's generally because they couldn't maintain this posture for as long as what was required. So a fix on that one generally is to do auxiliary work or accessory work to improve core endurance, and making them hold a standard as to what the position should look like. The positive thing around learning that correct technique with those 3 points, great tall spine in catch position, full extension, and drive with legs with straight arms, if you just repeat that over and over, watch yourself from the side, you get that nice sound in play, you create some breathing rhythm with it, and you treat it aerobically, you will develop a fantastic row stroke that'll carry over to you being super efficient at the movement, so we can really enjoy it for as much as we want to do it. That's it.